We're heading to a part of town that has the Astoria Hotel and the New York Cafe. The Astoria is one of the landmarks of Budapest. It has an Art Deco interior. Its cafe and restaurant are legendary for good value. It's a good spot for the businessman who wants to be in the center of town. And right nearby, you'll see this very old-looking building, and inside is the New York Cafe, one of the most splendid of the turn-of-the-century coffee houses of Budapest. It's an amazing amalgam of columns and statues and lighting and ceiling reliefs and kitschy effects and Art Nouveau all come together in this amazingly florid masterpiece of the New York Cafe. It played a very important role in the artistic life of the city in the first half of the 20th century. For the artists in those days, the cafe was their castle. So all day and into the night would gather poets and singers, painters and sculptors, artists and actors. Of course, in the evening, you'll find the traditional gypsy music. As we've said, nearly all of the good restaurants in town have live gypsy music in the evening. One of the main attractions of this wonderful city. After World War II, the communists took control of Budapest and many things went downhill, including the New York Cafe. And since then, it's been renovated and rebuilt and reopened. It's been privatized now. In fact, you actually have to pay an admission charge to get into the New York Cafe. It's the only restaurant I've ever seen where you pay to get in, but then if you buy something, the entrance charge can be credited to what you've purchased. It's more of a museum than a restaurant. In fact, the food is not very good in the New York Cafe. It's mediocre quality and high prices, but the interior is to die for. It's worth going just to look at it and have a cup of coffee, have some pastries, sit back at the bar and enjoy the sights, and then go someplace else for dinner. But the New York Cafe is one of a kind. It's a place to see and be seen in Budapest. This is a very good city for walking around, and one of the distinctive features of our trips with the Hawaii Geographic Society is the walking tour. We always take several walks through the heart of town and learn more about the history and the architecture, visit the parks and gardens, have a look inside some of the shops, and get to know the city from the foot level. No matter what European town you're in, the best way to see it is by walking.
I just wanted to say just one thing about this building across the street. It's a very modern building. You see, the architecture is very different than what we've been looking at. This is a business center, and it's an example of how Hungary is trying to integrate its economy into the world economy and to modernize the dealings with other countries. So inside in this business center, you can purchase anything from a car to a hotel to a shopping mall. There's wheeling and dealing going on inside here, part of the new capitalism that's breaking out in the country. Ever since 1990, they've had a so-called free economy. Of course, it's very much economy in transition. It's not a free market capitalist system yet by any means. But they're trying, and they have a stock market, and they are very much interested in getting Western capital to come on into the country. And this is just one of the few examples of this kind of a modern enterprise. And with this terrific transit system, these trolleys and subways, buses, and we're going to walk along here for about 4 blocks. Past all these shops, there's a couple of museums on the side, and then we're going to wrap around and come back in a circle on another street. They say this is one of the few streets in the inner part of Pest that are still preserved from the old days. And you see some of the older building facades. These are residential apartments and a few offices right nearby here, and a beautiful tree-lined street in the middle. So it's a little bit of a quieter neighborhood than some of the other parts of town. And just ahead of us, it gets busy again with the main commercial street. We'll be seeing an intersection of a couple of big thoroughfares. lots of trucks and buses, and there's a pedestrian underpass that we'll go under and walk down a few blocks past the university area and past a couple museums.
The colorful dome, built in the late 19th century, the library first opened in the 1630s. A couple of art museums, contemporary art, and the Museum of Fine Arts.
The museum itself is a grand building. It's one of these big, old-fashioned palaces of arts with huge courtyards on the inside and big galleries filled with old master paintings. A lot of Italian Renaissance and Flemish and Dutch. There were some very nice pieces. What we did see, some of the highlights included several paintings by Rembrandt. There was some very nice Italian Renaissance. There was Titian and Tintoretto. There was one spectacular piece by Leonardo da Vinci. It was a sculpture. It was a bronze sculpture by Leonardo. Probably the only bronze known to exist by the hand of Leonardo. It's a small model of an equestrian statue of a fellow riding a horse. And it was a wild kicking bronco. Not one of these staid poses that you see all the time. Leonardo spent much of his life in engineering projects. That's why he didn't do very many paintings. He was designing fortifications and things like that were practical. But he also was designing this equestrian monument. It was one of his great life's projects, and he could never get it built. It was just too ambitious. It couldn't be cast. But there was this little model of it, little bronze model in the museum. So June and I walked through all these rooms, and we're looking for a few nuggets, some beautiful nuggets of Velázquez, very beautiful, some Murillos, Goyas, a whole bunch of El Grecos.
Oh, really?
8 paintings by El Greco.
Part of the extensive Spanish collection, which includes 70 works, making it one of the largest Spanish collections outside of Spain. We also have many of the other important European masters, including Van Dyck, Gainsborough, Dürer from Germany. These paintings were put together not by the royalty, but by the aristocracy, certain noble families. It wasn't the Habsburgs collection. Here's a Rubens. Wonderful interior lobby atriums with the colonnade around it. Looks like a medieval cloister. Detailed Netherlandish painting by Hans Memling. A Madonna and Child by Raphael. Some living art by some small kids who are wandering through the museum with their painted faces. Lippi, Filippino Lippi, Annibale Carracci. These paintings were first collected by the Esterházy family back at the beginning of the 1700s and passed down the family line from one noble lord to the next until they finally became a public art museum in the late 19th century. Works by Frans Hals and Vermeer as well. There are paintings by Giorgione and Gentile Bellini, Van Dyck, and the Spanish master Goya. There's a total of 5 paintings here by Goya. Also have other Spanish works by Murillo, Zurbarán, and Ribera. There are some Impressionists. You'll find Monet and Manet and Renoir, and Cézanne and Pissarro inside. Typical of the style of the great art museums of Europe, you'll also get a range going all the way back to ancient Egypt as far as 3000 BC. The ruins and the remains, the mummies, the sarcophagi, the statues, little artifacts from the daily life, precious pieces from Egypt as well as from Greece and Rome. This collection is not overwhelmingly huge or intimidating, so in a few hours under one roof you can see the entire span of Western art history. And we ended our visit with a little excitement.
And we finally get towards the end of it. I thought we had another half hour, and they kicked us out. And June was physically grabbed by the guard.
No kidding.
And the guard's shaking her, saying, "It's time to go."